a case of beer, some barbecue. There's no doubt that I'm better than you. With these looks and these moves, you can't blame me for being so rude. The land of the red, white, and blue will be my home till the day I die. I'm every lady's fantasy. I'm the American guy.
Check. 1, 2.
The trailer park is where I'm from. You better believe I have about 27 guns. Baseball games, pickup trucks. I'm leagues above you other dumb schmucks. I'm from where the women are hot and the Twinkies are deep fried. And every day I pledge allegiance to God and country. I'm the American guy.
It is Friday. Happy Friday. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Filsinger Games Fan Podcast. This is episode number 119. We are on the cusp of number 120. And it's great to have you here. We have a great episode for you today. I'm super excited for you to hear today's episode because I think you're really going to enjoy it. This is the Filsinger Games Fan Podcast. This is episode 119 for December 18th, 2020. This is the podcast that has 2 distractor ratings, one for singles matches and one for tag matches. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to have you all here. So special thanks to these patron producers. These are the folks that make the show possible. Really appreciate their help and grateful for their support. If you would like to become a patron, you can visit patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media. Now, as I was saying, there is not a lot of news this week, and we're going to sort of mix things up because of the news. We are going to have an interview on this episode with Filsinger Games fan Jack Dourakos, aka Louden, Noxious, aka Gavin Loudspeaker, but we will start with what news we do have, and that is the main news is that the main 3 sets, the new 3 sets from Filsinger Games are now shipping, and that's Kronos Battle Lines, Women of the Indies 2020, and the Legends Expansion Pack 6 are now available in both cardstock and digital form. If you're like me, you're going to get both. If you have not ordered yet and you want to see the cards before Christmas, digital is your way to go because the post office is backed up, but definitely get your order in. You can do so at filsingergames.com. All the information is there. Now, there were unannounced wrestlers in Legends Expansion Pack. There was one unannounced wrestler in Legends Expansion Pack 6, and there were 3, actually 4, spoiler alert, unannounced wrestlers in Promoter Prime, the last Promoter Prime batch of cards for 2020. And we will cover all the Legend stuff on the next episode of the show, which will, I'm just thinking, will not happen next Friday because next Friday is Christmas. But the next episode of the show, we'll get to that. If you're interested in finding out who was announced, you can look elsewhere on this very YouTube channel, because elsewhere on this YouTube channel, we have the Expansion Pack 6 overview. That's just an overview of what cards are in the set, and you can check it out there. We have the overview of Legends Prime 2020, so all the cards that came out for the whole year. I guess there's a spoiler alert right there in the in the image. Sorry about that if you didn't want to know. And then we also have a Legends Expansion Pack 6 unboxing. And I just played the other night a tournament of Legends with some of the new cards, and it was a wild, wild time. So you can find that elsewhere on the YouTube channel here. And if you're new here, please subscribe. We'd love to have you as a subscriber, and that way you'll know when all these videos get released. Hey, you know what else happened today? A brand new episode of the Uncharted Territory podcast. And this episode is a review of Legends 6, the brand new color expansion that just came out, by the people who made it, who put it together. So if you want from the source information about this set, you gotta listen to this episode. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. It came out today. I can hardly wait to check it out. I'm super, super excited. Now, we have a question of the show, and the question of the show is not going to happen this episode because we've got this interview. So the question of the show will return next episode. And as for song of the show, All I'll say is we have a little surprise during this interview. So let's get to the interview. This interview is absolutely, it's a lot of fun, and I just thank Jack immensely for coming on the show. Here now is the Filsinger Games fan podcast interview with Jack Dourakos, a.k.a. Louden Noxious. Well, I'm super excited to welcome to the show Jack Dourakos. You may know him as Louden Noxious. You may know him as Gavin Loudspeaker, but here he is. Jack, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, Grant, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's great talking to you, brother.
You know, you're the first guest, and I just said, who could be the best first guest for a Filsinger Games podcast other than the Uber fan, the one, the only Jack. So I'm super happy.
I can't imagine there being a bigger one than me. I was there almost since day one, at least day two.
Well, that's my question: is how did you find the game? How did you get involved?
Well, like most senior citizens my age, I was perusing Pro Wrestling Illustrated, my favorite magazine to this day, and there was Spike staring me in the face, asking me if I wanted him to be my babysitter. And I did. I did want him to. And I remember thinking, there were two wrestling games at the time. There was a well, at least in the magazine there was a WCW game. It was a card game, and it was WCW brand game, so it was like the Steiners and, Sting and all that. And I was weighing my options. I was like, which one do I want? And I remember the WCW game came with like 16 wrestlers. And Champions of the Galaxy came with, I think, 32 wrestlers. So that, or 24.
Right.
So that made up my mind right there. I was like, I want the one with more wrestlers. And I went with it, and I didn't know if I was going to get it in the mail. This is back when like mail fraud was really common, and you didn't know. You ordered something out of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Maybe you got it, maybe you didn't. But 6 weeks later, there it was, and I opened it up. I started playing with my friend Billy Melton next door. And I did my tournament, my first ever big tournament, and Battering Ram won. And
were you from the very beginning? Were you like treating it as if it was a Fed? You know what I mean? Like this is going to have a history.
Oh, it was weird because right from the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm going to do I don't know. I saw these characters, and because they didn't have a previous, except for the story in the book, to me, they were all brand new. So I really felt like this was a real federation, and I was really a promoter. Like that's the magic of the game, right? You really feel like you're promoting. So when I did the tournament, I realized that I had a little win-loss record right here. Like Battering Ram was undefeated. Death Knight hadn't won a single match. I was like, I'm going to keep track of this. And Thanatos was my first champion. And I had, for a long time, I kept track of wins and losses and ties until well into my 20s. I did that. And then I lost my record book. So I kind of gave that up. I still, I kept the actual cards though, so I can go back and look. But yeah, no, I treated it like it was a real Fed, and you had to win to be a top contender, and that was, to me, that was the fun of it,
Yeah. Well, I wanted to back up really quick and ask, you were reading Pro Wrestling Illustrated. What wrestling were you watching at the time? Like, were you watching WWF or all of it?
All of it. I was, at that point, I was just in wrestling land. Like that's all I thought about. It's all I dreamt about. When I was in school, I was just, drawing pictures of wrestlers, and I was watching WWE. I'd been watching WWE for years, but I was getting into WCW. I was starting to like WCW a little bit more, or at least I was starting to like aspects of it a little bit more. But like where I grew up in Baltimore, Washington, there's a lot of wrestling in that area. There was WCW. We had World Class was on ESPN after school every day. So I started watching World Class, and quickly like became a fan of that. And I started using that as ideas for booking my Fed. And Glow was on. I watched that.
Right.
Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling cartoon. I was just in love with it. I also loved like roller derby. Remember roller games? That was I was a big fan of roller games and American Gladiators. So it was just whatever. If it was a worked sport, I watched it.
That's like all that Saturday late morning like that's when all that stuff would start to come on, like when all the cartoons were over, and then you'd have wrestling, and then that bridged the gap to roller derby and all this, at least in San Francisco anyway.
Well, I mean, are you from San Francisco?
From the Bay Area, yeah, originally.
Bay Area, okay. I being a Greek American, my parents made me go to Greek school on Saturday mornings, and this really ticked me off to no end because that's when cartoons were on.
Right.
So I was like, come on, I go to school 5 days a week. You're going to make me go to Greek school on Saturday? Like,
and there's no, DVR. There's VCRs, but there's no.
No, yeah. And there wasn't even really, this was maybe even when it was, no one knew how to program the VCR. Right. So by the time I got home from Greek school, there wasn't, can we swear or are we not swearing here?
You can, sure, you can swear. I'll censor it.
There wasn't shit on. And so they, I would just turn on the TV to, whatever UHF channel. Sometimes it was Hee Haw, Soul Train. So I watched a lot of Soul Train.
Yeah.
And then wrestling would just be on, and it would just be on in the background. And it was kind of just there. And then like before you knew it, I was kind of paying attention. And I figure this is how a lot of housewives get addicted to soap operas. They just turn it. They would just turn on the TV while they're cleaning.
Right.
That was incredibly male chauvinist of me to say.
Well,
that.
In the 80s,
but in the 80s, that's kind of how they hooked you in. So yeah, it would on in the background, and I remember I was kind of paying attention, and then Andre the Giant got his head shaved, and I flipped out because I'd never seen anything that ridiculous in my life. And I just ran to the kitchen. I told my mom, I'm like, they just shaved somebody's head on TV. Mom's like, Jack, that stuff is not really happening. And I was like, I kind of knew that. I kind of knew it, but it's Santa Claus,
Well, you are somebody who, got to work for and still, when there's not pandemic, work for wrestling organizations. Was that always a dream? Like someday I'm going to be part of this somehow?
It was a dream, but it's not one I ever thought was going to come true. Like,
I
didn't think I was going to ever step foot on a real wrestling ring, much less get trained, and work a match and do an angle and then, be on TV or whatever. Like that was like, that was not, I had no idea. No one in my family even watches wrestling. In fact, I kind of had to be a closet wrestling fan for a long time because they wouldn't even talk about it. So, it wasn't like something I really aspired to do. I mean, I've always been an entertainer. I've always been, I've always dreamt of it. And of course, playing Champions of the Galaxy, I was doing my own commentary the whole time. It played a lot into, because me and my friend Billy Melton, the next door neighbor, we did, well, there was no podcast, but he had one of those giant video cameras that were like the size of a toaster, and not a flying toaster, but
right.
We used to shoot like a GWF like talk show. So that's kind of where I got my chops, to be a wrestling personality, much like yourself and your work in CWF Hollywood, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, I mean, I was always a big fan, and I was glad to get involved, at least for a little while anyway, for sure. It was a lot of fun.
We have a lot in common, We both did commentary with announcers. We both musicians. We both live in LA. Yeah.
Surprise! It's me, Billy. No, I'm kidding.
Brothers from another mother. Hey, it's Billy.
Yeah. Do you still play Champions of the Galaxy?
I do, but not. I don't get to play it like. I don't get to play like enough to get a real fed going. What I do is I have tentpole shows. I do three big shows a year, which is I do my Central Perennial on Greek Easter. So I always do them on holidays, so I know when they are. So Greek Easter is when I do my Central Perennial, which is I have like a big battle royal, and I bring all the new cards, and then in July when Galacticon happens, I do a Galacticon big show, and then on Christmas Eve, I do a show on Christmas Eve.
Oh, so you got a card coming up very soon here.
So I got a big one coming up this couple weeks. Santa Wolf's on his way.
What year are you in? I mean, I know you do 3 a year or whatever, but do you keep current, or you just use whatever cards you're interested in?
Kind of right. I mean, I still like a lot of the older cards, so I'm still like right now. I think Armageddon's my champ. His name isn't Armageddon. His name is End of Days.
Oh, End of Days. Okay, there
End
you
of
go.
Days. He's my champion. That's because I haven't played since last Christmas. But I like a lot of the older guys. I bring in new guys, and then if a new set comes out and I'm really high on somebody, I bring in the legends. I bring in everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the great thing about this game is you can mix and match and do whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah. Who wouldn't want to see the Rock and Roll Express take on the Gladiators?
Exactly.
In what world? In what universe?
Well, I did want to ask as we switch frames here, Galacticon. When did you? This is a picture of us from Galacticon, and this may be, I think, the first time I met you in 2009.
I remember that.
Yeah. When was your first Galacticon? When did you go to Galacticon?
I was at the first Galacticon.
The very first one. Okay.
The very first Galacticon. I think it was in 1990. And I was going to a summer camp at Goucher College, and it was for acting. It was for drama, and my mom came to Goucher with Billy Melton, pick me up, and we drove. And she, because I didn't, she drove us to Jamestown. And we got there on Saturday night, so it was like we were late. We got there on like Saturday night, and then I kind of met everybody, and then Sunday Tom did his first big talk, like where we went out on the porch of the Sheldon house, and we sat on the porch, and Tom held court, and there he was. He telling us, talking about what who's coming or what's going to happen, and we got to ask any question we wanted about any character. And this all blew my mind, man. I couldn't believe I was there talking to the maker of my favorite game, and it was Mark Ashby had his Champions of the Galaxy cassette and was playing the music that he wrote, and all this guy, and I mean it was fun. Tim Dalton, who's maybe the only person who's a bigger wrestling fan than me, he would have all these. This is back when VHS was the only way you could watch Japan wrestling or hardcore, and he had all this stuff. It's the first time I ever saw Sabu. It's the first time Tom Filsinger ever saw Sabu, and I learned a lot. It was learned a lot about wrestling, and Mike Delve was a wrestler, so it was very, very Champions of the Galaxy centric, but it was also just like I would say probably the biggest wrestling fans on earth at the same time.
Well, and I didn't get to it till later. And in fact, I think 2007 was maybe my first one. But what I loved about, especially that 2009 one was, or I don't know if it was 2009, but it was in the Sheldon house. But you brought all this memorabilia from over the years. And it was like this museum, and you just spread it out on that table. And like, I literally spent like hours in there, in between tournaments and stuff, just looking at all that stuff. Cause I didn't come to the game till around 99, 98, 99. So seeing all this stuff was great. So you are,
if you want to hang on 1 second, Grant, hold on 1 second. All right, man. I have quite a collection right here that I just thought I'd pull out for the heck of it. All this stuff is some goofy crap that I've collected over the years. Like weird little newspaper articles.
Yeah.
From the Jamestown Gazette or whatever it is.
Yeah.
These things used to come in the mail. So, I would just be, coming home from school, and I'd go pick up the mail, and this would be sitting there, and I was like, yes, the new Champions of the Galaxy, and I would know who was coming, so it'd be like Mad Jester was coming, so that way I could kind of seed it into my fed, and I could be like, oh, and the royal court is teasing a new person that's gonna be here soon, and it was fun because this was like our vignette,
right.
And I have a ton of that, and just old stuff like this is the sample Federation match to teach you how to play. The old pin save chart, which always ended in disqualification, no matter what. A really old flyer, so you can buy the, and then this is my favorite stuff. was when you would actually get a letter from Tom. I have every single letter Tom ever sent me, including the first one where he addressed me as John Dourakos.
See, and I love that. I love that stuff. I mean, even that envelope is awesome, like custom printed Filsinger Games envelope. And I just got the new Legends set I got in the mail today, and it comes in a white envelope. But I kind of miss those old, Champions of the Galaxy printed on envelopes.
Oh, it doesn't have the little logo on it?
No, and I understand it. It's a cost thing. You know what I mean? Like to get.
Oh, okay. Because I don't even remember the last time it didn't have the logo on it. It seemed like it always. I remember it changed from blue to black.
Yeah.
This is actually a letter from Mark Ashby when he was doing the Club Galacticon, and and so that was way before there was like the GW promoter or any of that stuff.
The Olsen brothers have a podcast called Uncharted Territory, which you might love if you love podcasts. But they just did a thing.
Todd told me about it. Yeah, Todd said he was on it the other day.
They went through like the first 3 newsletters, and it was so fascinating. Like it was just so great to hear. And then they put up the newsletter so you could kind of follow along and see what online, so you can check them out. Yeah, it's really great.
It was thick. It was and it was stapled together, so it was a big, thick thing. And it was all these like Fed results and very, very detailed. A lot of work, man, for somebody who I think was about 13 or 14 years old. This is the original Chaos, the Destroyer.
That is awesome. Yeah.
That's a Chuck Taylor. Chuck Taylor.
Chuck Taylor. I love his shoes. Chuck Carter.
I love the wrestler too. Chuck Carter. Yeah, my favorite artist. And there's just some goofy ones here. I think that might even be the original Reptilo. I'm not sure. I
think I took a picture of that, and then I posted it as like Plethador going, my long lost relative. This is my great grandfather, because that was one of the pictures you brought to Galacticon. That was just amazing.
Yeah. Oh man, it's just a ton in here, man. I'm just got here's the Galacticon 10. I love collecting the programs. That was my thing. My big thing was I was getting there on Friday and going to the hotel and getting the program from the hotel lobby. Right. It had to be there. Like that, if that program was not in the hotel lobby, someone's going to hear about it on Saturday. So I have lots of them. I have all of them. I don't have all of them, but in a little more depressing news, I actually collected the promoter, and I didn't start with no one, but eventually I got all the promoters. And they went to 100, and I had 1 through 100, all of them. I didn't really know anybody else who had that. I had them in a notebook, and of course I kept them in Baltimore with my mom. And you know how that goes. I think there was a church bazaar where they were having and she's like, Jack, can I get away some of your old toys? I'm like, sure, Mom. And I think she gave somebody a big notebook full of stuff that's probably in a garbage can now. So there goes that. But
Thanks,
I had all 100 promoters, and I was pretty proud of that. Yeah.
I think I was able to finally collect them thanks to Shane Sullivan, because there were some that were like you couldn't get anymore. And then Shane Sullivan said, oh, I have them. I'll just send them to you. So I think I have a full set.
Well, there were a few years where I would ask Tom. I didn't have 1 and 2. And there were a few years where I'd ask him, do you have 1? Do you have 2? And 1, do you have 2? He'd always say no, no, no. And then one year he just had them. One year he's like, here you go. I'm like, what?
He was like, I went to a church bazaar and found this box, so now I have them. It's really great.
He is half Greek, so.
He is. Well, I wanted to also talk as we pop back here. You came to Galactical several times, and it's always been fun having to Galactical. And I don't think we've done we did one more in 2018, but you are a former West Coast champion of Galactical.
I am. And I think I'm pretty sure I'm the only bi-coastal champion.
I think that's right. I think you were the first. Yeah.
That was really fun. That was super awesome. I still have my trophy. That's for sure.
Well, hopefully we get to do it again soon if it weren't for this pandemic. I want to talk to you about Synergy, because these are characters that you created.
I was hoping we'd talk about Synergy.
Vision and Stormchild, which were characters you made, and then they became COTG online exclusives as well.
It's kind of a long story because Synergy started out as Tom did a design your own tag team contest, and I was like, oh, there's no female tag team. My favorite tag team growing up as a kid was the Jumping Bomb Angels. Mm-hmm. When I saw the Jumping Bomb Angels, it changed the way I thought about wrestling. It changed the way I saw wrestling. Like I'd never seen anything like them in my life, and they were so exciting. They captured my imagination. I was like, we need something like that in COTG. So I created a tag team of twin sisters with psychic powers so they could communicate, psychically in the ring. And they were originally called Psychic Storm. And I submitted to the tag team contest, and I came in the top 3, but Tom ended up going with Moral Majority that year. So I lost, and I fell into a very, very deep depression for many years. But then I didn't give up. I didn't give up hope. Don't give up, kids. Because then one year at Galacticon, this is how it happened. Hannibal King, very talented artist for many years for Filsinger, was at Galacticon, and he was just drawing for people. Like you just would give him, give him that was like $20 or $40, and he would draw you your own character. Mm-hmm. And so I had him draw me Vision and Stormchild. And then I came up with sort of a new name, and I showed them to Tom. I showed the pictures to Tom, and Tom liked him a lot. He said, I think we can maybe do that. And I was over the moon. It was dream. Yeah. That is maybe one of my biggest dreams come true. And then he even put Vision on the cover of one of the promoters. He liked that drawing. He liked that drawing so much.
Yeah, they're great. It's a great. I never. I don't think I ever used them because I'm not up to where they kind of would have slotted in, because I do play by year and time and, 25 cards a year and all that kind of stuff. And so I haven't gotten to the point where I'd slot them in, but I've always loved those cards. And I remember you gave them to me, I think at the Galacticon, and I was so stoked to get physical copies.
I wanted everybody to have them because I wanted everybody to use them and tell me how they were doing in their fed. Because I did not make them. I made them quirky, but they're not like intentionally strong. I wanted them to be underdogs, and that's why I made their finisher so risky. Their finisher's crazy. It's like they only hit it like maybe 1 out of 6 times. Right. But when they do, watch out. You are dead meat.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing is you've had a couple. This is one of your cards in the game, and you've had a couple. And
3,
right? And how does it feel to be in the game as an actual officially released card? Is it cool?
It was just another like thing that was amazing for me. Just a dream come true. Like it was so amazing that I never even used myself in the game because I just couldn't. Like I couldn't fit myself into. I couldn't even see myself being in the game. So I've never actually used my own cards. But the first one was the Louden and Noxious card. It was the Kaiju Big Battle one,
right? Which I love that art. Werner killed that art on that. It was so great.
Nailed it, man.
Yeah,
he nailed it. You got the Sky Deviler in the background and everything.
Yeah.
And then he did. Then we did the Gavin Loudspeaker, which was with the Chikara stuff. And that was more when I was kind of like, I was like, okay, well, I can see that fits with Chikara. They got, that if you do a Chikara show, I can see how that would work. And then that the one that you got on the screen right now is from the live show that we did,
right?
The live Jamestown show.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool. Yeah, and it must be just great to, but I think I was just thinking of this, that you were talking about how you filmed a GWF show when you were kids. It's almost like you were part of it. You know what I mean? Like you were an announcer for this fed, and now it's all come true that you're actually in it.
Yeah, and I love the card mechanics too. I think that they're pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I got some questions I wanted to ask you, and I think you already answered this one. But who is your all-time favorite game artist?
Well, I mean, Chuck Carter. I think Chuck Carter just nailed it. He just like not and what I mean by that is like the style. Like he it was cartoony enough to be a comic book, but he still you could still everyone still had a character. You could still tell by their facial expressions exactly who this guy was, especially Thanatos. Like I knew exactly who this dude was the second I saw him. So I loved that the eyes, like that it's all about the facial expressions for me, and that's what the thing about Chuck Carter that I love the most. But I also, I mean, of course, I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna have to go with Hannibal King. I love his style too. Very, very Jack Kirby kind of esque, and comic booky, and of course he drew Synergy, so I'm going to be biased in that respect. But he also drew a lot of other characters I loved a lot, like Kill Prey, and then here's one that you're going to be surprised by this one, but I was a huge Mike Gustovich fan.
I'm not surprised. I always ask this question, and people are. I don't ever mean this question like you can only have one and you hate all the rest. You know what I mean? Like that's not why I'm asking. I'm just asking who's your favorite artist. Like who's and so I think some of. I know that Bendis sometimes gets some razzing for some of his artwork, or just among the community. But there's some of his artwork that, like right now, my profile picture on the board is this picture of Spike he did, which when Werner colored it looks so great. Maybe the original card, I don't know if it's black and white or green and white or blue and white or whatever, but wasn't that great. But yeah, so I think every artist has fantastic drawings, and I'm certainly not asking this question to bag on other artists.
No, of course. There's none of them because they were all amazing. But what was I gonna say? Every artist drew at least one quintessential character. Gustovich drew Morpheus, the first Morpheus. When I think of Morpheus, I think of that drawing. So every artist has like one guy that they like just nailed. At least one guy. And as far as Bendis goes, when he first came on board, it was a little shocking to see him use so much shadow because that had not been done before, and that's his style. But he toned it down, and then everything just fit right in. And
I remember one of my favorite.
And what happened to that guy? Did anything ever happen to Brian Bendis?
I don't think so. No, what's funny was I won original Bendis art. I think it was like his version of Bishop Hell or something at Galacticon in the auction. And so I took it to Comic-Con, and it may even been the Comic-Con you guys were there with Kaiju Big Battle or something like that. And he was doing a signing, and I got in line, and that's like everyone else has got their Avengers comic books or whatever, Jessica Jones. Yeah, and Powers, whatever. And I came up with that, and he was like, "What are you doing to me, man?" Like this, like he could not believe it.
I remember on the back of one of the like handbooks that came was an ad for his indie comic Goldfish,
right?
Which was before when he was still kind of like trying to break in. And I always wish I would have got it. I didn't get it. I should have, because if you walked up with Goldfish, dude.
Yeah. Well, next question is, what is your all-time favorite game card? Or you could pick more than one if you want, if it's really a hard choice.
It's so hard, but I always loved Matador of M83. It's just, he's my favorite character, and he's so different. He's got his back to you because he's just so cocky, right. And I love the art. Because he's called Matador of M83, but he's not a Matador. He's not wearing the goofy hat. He doesn't have the El Matador, towel or whatever. He's just, cape. He's just, that was just happened to be his name, and I just thought that was pretty cool. And again, Chuck Carter. But I want to think of something probably like. I want to do something kind of recent, something that I loved recently. And,
well, have you seen while you're thinking, have you seen the updated Matador artwork that they released for that best of set?
You know what? I'm going to go with the updated Matador. The updated Matador, Daryl Banks, unreal. And Werner nailing the color. Like, bro. Yeah. I mean, when Todd texted me that artwork, and I flipped out, man. I'm like, amazing.
Yeah.
I think it's the best. I think it's the best artwork.
Yeah, it's really great, and especially if you get like a nice high-res version of it, and you can see all the detailing and everything. That it's wonderful artwork.
Love it. This time he's from the front, but he's looking back. You know,
right? Who is your dream legend signing? If you could have any legend ever in all history in the game, who would it be?
I would go with either the Jumping Bomb Angels or Manami Toyota, the Japanese wrestler Manami Toyota.
Yeah,
she was trained by the Jumping Bomb Angels, and I was just a big fan of all of her matches with Aja Kong in Japan. I'm a big fan of Japanese women wrestling, of course.
I wish we had the Jumping Bomb Angels because we have the Glamour Girls, and I would love to run that program. Yeah,
I know. Come on,
especially
guys.
now with our color Jimmy Hart card too at ringside. So
let's brush up on that Japanese and let's get it done.
What else are you playing? What other games? Because I know don't you play? I don't know if it's Warhammer or a Warhammer-like game.
I play Warhammer.
Yeah.
I play 40K. I don't know if you know, like, there's a couple different games in Warhammer. One of them's called 40K, which is in the future, and I also play Age of Sigmar, which is like the more fantasy-oriented game, and then I also play Blood Bowl, which is like a fantasy football game, or with like orcs and goblins, but they're playing football.
And are these all? Because I am not familiar with. I mean, I've heard of Warhammer and stuff like that, but are these all games you can play solo, or do you need other people to play them?
No, that's the thing about Warhammer. It's a much more involved hobby because when you buy Champions of the Galaxy, you don't have to take it out of a box, cut it off the sprue, mold line remove it, glue it together, base it, prime it, then paint it.
Right.
Then learn a rule book that's about this thick. You need like 20 or 40 dice, and you need another person to play with. So it's a much more involved game, but it's a hobby. It's like a whole hobby, like I said. Like it's besides the building and painting and the playing of the game, there's also all this lore. They've got hundreds and hundreds of books and novels and stuff, like just going back to 30 plus years of lore that to an uninitiate would be really intimidating. And I think it's kind of like, I can see why someone would come into this setting and be like, this is too big of a rabbit hole. I could never do this. So that's why I think that they Age of Sigmar they kind of like, they took fantasy and they kind of blew it up and then and then they started over with Age of Sigmar so people could kind of like start fresh, kind of like New Beginnings.
New Beginnings, yeah. That's where I jumped it back in because I was playing. I think I was up to 2100 or something like that, and I was like, oh, here's this jumping on point. I will get current. The final question is, if folks want to follow you online and check out your stuff and what you're up to, where can they go to do that?
Oh God, you can get me on. I'm on Twitter. It's just at Louden Noxious, and hit me up and we can talk about wrestling anytime you want. Also, I have a Jack Dourakos YouTube channel as well. And if you pop on there, throw some comments on, give me some views, I will definitely be on, willing to get on there and chat with you. And I haven't posted in a little bit, but I'm going to be doing some more real soon. I'm also going to be starting a Warhammer podcast with a couple friends. Or not podcast, YouTube channel. And so I'm going to be doing some Warhammer stuff as well.
Awesome. Well, I will put links to all that stuff in the show notes. So if people want to check it out, they can connect with you. And
I also have one more thing I'd like to share before we go.
Please do. I would love it.
All right. Well, first we had his name was Reptillo. Then they turned him into the Doomsday Creature, and then turned him into the Serpent Unman. Then he went right back, and then he was back to Reptillo. Then he left. Sweet, you please bring Reptillo back. He wasn't the best wrestler in the world, but I thought he was kind of cute, even though he sucked.
Woo! Now I'm on the other side for some reason. That was awesome. I turned off my camera so you wouldn't have to see me grinning like an idiot.
I flipped you over there.
Yeah. Wow, that was awesome. You now owe me 5 cents. No, I'm kidding.
I know. I got PayPal it.
Royalty. No. Well, Jack, just thanks again for coming on here. Really appreciate it. And,
no problem, man.
you know, I would love to have you back on sometime. We could chat about the game, do other things.
Anytime.
All right.
And
we will do it.
let's get together and roll some dice, man.
Let's do it. As soon as this pandemic's done, we're going to get together. All right. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you, Grant.
There you go. My interview with Jack Dourakos, a.k.a. Louden, Noxious. So much fun to talk to him. And what a surprise there at the end, him pulling out the ukulele version of the Ballad of Reptillo. So super, super thanks to him for being on the show. For links to Jack's YouTube and social media, check out the show notes for this episode, which I will update as soon as the episode is posted. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it. As we wrap up here, I do want to let you know that we do have an audio version of the show. So if you want to listen to this in an audio form, you can find it wherever you get your favorite podcast. Just search for Filsinger Games and your favorite audio store, and it should pop right up. If you have a topic you would like the show to cover, leave it in the comments, and make sure to subscribe or follow, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitch, or and follow GWF Promoter on social media at GWF Promoter. You can check out my personal wrestling federations at gwfpromoter.com and lowpromoter.com. The theme song that you're listening to right now is American Guy by Throwing Toasters, used by permission and available on Apple Music, Spotify, and anywhere you get your music. This podcast is not affiliated in any way with Filsinger Games or its subsidiaries. It's purely for entertainment purposes. This episode is copyright 2020 Saturday Morning Media. We are going to take a week off unless there's some big news, but we just will not be on the air Friday because it is Christmas and we will be celebrating Christmas. But we will return shortly after that with all your latest favorite Filsinger Games news and all that kind of good stuff. Hey, have a great Christmas if you celebrate. Have a great holiday, whatever you celebrate. If I don't talk to you before the new year, have a happy new year. Thank you guys for making this podcast a lot of fun, because you really do. I will talk to you soon. Take it easy, everybody. Goodbye.
Of all the great things that I've got. And you know, when I sit down and take a look